Today we are gonna be working on creating VPC, and it's kind of gonna be a part 2 video. So we already discussed few things in an earlier video, which were like once you have the Lambda, by default you can check if it does have an internet access or not. And we saw that using a library, or we can actually see if we can. It was an example code where we saw that whether or not when we create a default Lambda, we can access the internet or not using our Lambda. So Lambda by default, by with that I mean that it's not part of the VPC. But what happens is, like, once we connect it to a VPC, we saw that it's not able to access the internet. Today, the things I wanted to cover is like how to set up the VPC, how to connect a Lambda to that VPC, or once we connected that Lambda to the VPC, again we're gonna lose the internet access unless we do few things. So we're gonna make sure that our VPC has internet access, and our Lambda within that VPC, which is going to be on the private subnet, does have the internet. So for that, we're going to go to the VPC and create a new VPC. So lately what they have done, Amazon AWS, if you go here, create a VPC, and then instead of the, so what we used to do is, like, we used to create the VPC, then go there and then create the subnets and the routing tables and stuff like that. Now what they have done is, like, if you go VPC and more, it's gonna create a project for you. We're gonna name the name of it's gonna create a VPC for you, and it also has this visual demonstration, like how the VPC is gonna look like, and you can change all those things. So currently it suggests you that you're gonna have 4 subnets. Two of them are gonna be like, sorry, like, we're gonna have subnets in 2 different regions, east to A and east to B. Then we're gonna have each region is gonna have a public subnet and a private subnet. And then we're gonna have routing tables, and the way it works is, like, it has 3 different routing tables, right? So one is gonna be connected to what they call internet gateway, and so that the VPC can have internet access. So the VPC is gonna have access to the internet. So again, the private ones go to other routing tables, and then that's gonna go to just a network interface, and it will not have, so it's completely gonna be a private one. It won't be accessible through internet. So we're gonna name it over here, and the CIDR blocks is, like, gonna tell you that how many devices you can have, or how many different IP addresses you can assign. And if you do want to have, like, an IPv6 functionality, you can enable that. We don't want to do it for now. uh, Number of availability zones you can have, again, you can play with it. If you do 3, it's gonna make sure that the VPC has access to 3 different uh, uh, like, zones. Number of public subnets, so we have a total of 0 or 2 public subnets. And if you make it 0, see how you end up not having that IGW, which is the internet gateway. So that's another thing. Then you have the number of private subnets. You can have 0, 2, and 4. Again, all of them are gonna be private this time, whatever number you choose. So that's another one. Then NAT gateways. This is gonna this has some cost association with it. So if you end up having one NAT gateway. It's gonna have like, we are gonna need it for our Lambda to have internet access, but we can set it up later on. And then you have to, but if you know that for some reason like your Lambda needs to access to internet, and you can actually, when setting up the VPC, instead of creating the VPC separately and then creating a NAT, you can actually do it over here. So it's normally like, so it's gonna automatically uh, so we are not actually touching the public subnets. They are still going, the routing tables is still gonna go to the internet gateway, but the other routing tables is gonna have two of these. So the other routing tables is gonna basically have the old way where we have a we have a gateway and we were just like a private gateway, and the other one is the NAT one, which, so basically all the private ones would be able to access the internet too with that NAT gateway. So for now we're gonna just say none, and VPC endpoint. So this one, it enables you to privately connect to your VPC to supported AWS services like Amazon S3. So uh, it's gonna put another gateway here. So basically it enables the S3 gateway. VPC endpoint enable you to create an isolated VPC that is closed from the public internet. Okay, in addition there is an additional charge by using gateway endpoints, which helps avoid the cost associated with the NAT gateways. So we're gonna stick with none for now. We're gonna say create VPC. It is going through all those steps, and we can see our VPC now. So this VPC has been created. You can see the subnets here, you can see the routing tables here, and you can see the network connections. So that's one step. So now if I go to the route tables again, if you want to look at the subnets, let's refresh that. Okay, so we have that subnets. You can look at the details here. Okay, but if you go to the route tables and look at one of these route tables, again this is a local one, and you would find out that the local one is basically for the private ones. So if you go to the public one, it is the local one, and it also has a link to the IGW, the internet gateway, which is this one. So now we have two internet gateways. Okay, at this point, if anything, if you go to the Lambda, right, let's just create one. Which is our author from scratch. It is creating our function. I wanted to show you. So if you go to the configuration and VPC, you can edit that, and you can find that there is a VPC over there named delete VPC. So at this point, if the Lambda or any of the resources you have is connected to that VPC, I'm sorry, if the Lambda is associated to that VPC, it's still not gonna have internet access. Even though the VPC has internet access, the reason for that is like, there are a couple of reasons, right? So the reasons are like, one thing you need to understand is that Lambda functions, they don't have public IP addresses. That's one reason. And the other one is that the public subnets with those like internet gateways, uh, access cannot be used by, it's just for the security reasons. It's how the AWS did that. Although our VPC has internet access, they for security reasons, or like whatever the reasons there are, they don't want to have it cannot have the internet access. For this Lambda to have internet access, what you need to do is like uh, the VPC. Gonna get to the VPC. So what they want you to do is to create another NAT gateway, and then once you do that in the routing tables, what you're gonna do is go to the both of your private routing tables, and you're gonna create a new one, edit route, and then add route, and then you're gonna in the drop down you would see that NAT gateway, and then you can actually do the association. That's one way of doing that, right? And the other one is like once you were creating when you were creating the VPC, you could just have created the NAT at the same time, and then let it handle the routing tables. So basically, another thing I wanted to cover was like what's gonna be in terms of the subnets. We have quite a few subnets. All of our resources, right, they are going to go into the private. So if you have a DynamoDB, if you have Lambda, they are gonna be in terms of the subnets. When you are setting up the Lambda, it's gonna have association to those. They are gonna be on the private side of the VPC. And what I mean by that is if I copy that Lambda, go to delete, configuration, and VPC edit, delete. So now he's asking you what subnets you wanted to connect to. So the subnets which we wanted to connect to are gonna be just the private subnets, whichever has the private. If you want it to be available in two zones, it's gonna be in the private side. You shouldn't be connecting it to the public one. Okay, you can use a secure default one for that. Okay, that's all I wanted to cover in terms of creation of the VPCs and stuff like that. But one thing is like we definitely wanna know how to delete what we just created. So we created this one, right? So there can be a couple of things. You can start deleting things. If you're not allowed to delete it, you have to detach it. So you go there, you would have to detach it, and then it goes like in the opposite order. So once we created that, we have to go in the opposite order, meaning we have to delete the internet gateway, routing table, subnets, and then the VPC. Okay, so that now we should be able to delete that. Okay, in terms of the routing tables, okay, again we are gonna make sure that edit routes, if I have that, association cannot be deleted. It does have the association, and we are in the subnet. Okay, if I yes, deleted. Now if I go back to the routing tables, so what he was complaining about was it had association to the subnets. So I deleted the subnets first, and delete route tables, and now it's letting me delete it. And last but not least, we have to delete the VPC. Now you can actually delete the VPC because there is no association, there are no routing tables, and there are no subnets, and the VPC has been deleted. For cleanup, we're also gonna delete the Lambda. Okay, that's all I wanted to cover in this video. Thanks for watching.